So, in the last video, I talked about the Cleveland, Mississippi, the Delta State University shooting, blah, blah, blah. I even talked about how it ties in with Moses Malone. And the first guy who built the first home on the bayou in the area was Moses W. Coleman. But I noticed the elevation of this town is 141. And that's also 43 meters, which interesting, 43 and 141. And then 7.3 square miles, which deals with a 21. But anyway, 141 is like the mirror of 14 and 41. And I've been seeing 41 like crazy around Nebraska. But before I even go into that, the guy who shot the Delta State University shooting was Shannon Lamb. Shannon Lamb is 113. The Pythagorean, he is 41. So, very significant. The 113 I've talked about a ton of times. The 252nd day of the year is 9/9, the day that Queen Elizabeth became the longest reigning British/English monarch ever. But there's 113 days left. There's a lot more to this, but it doesn't really necessarily tie into the 41, right, as like what I'm trying to explain. So I'm not trying to confuse anybody, so I don't want to keep going on about it. But anyway, Shannon Lamb then killed his girlfriend, who was Amy Prentice, when she was 41 years old. So I just want to pull it up really quick. Yeah, he killed Ethan Schmidt. He also killed his girlfriend, age 41, Amy Prentice. So his name adds up to 41, and then he killed his 41-year-old girlfriend. And he also killed Ethan Schmidt. Let's look at Ethan Schmidt. So 52. I mean, I didn't talk that much about 52s, but 52 has been really significant this year. It ties in with plutonium. Plutonium in the Manhattan Project is called plutonium 235 or 239. Yeah. And 239 is the 52nd prime. Plutonium is also the what makes time travel possible. That's why the 88 is so important this year. It's all about plutonium, and the 88 is the miles an hour, and then the flux capacitor. But plutonium adds up to 141, the mirrors 14 and 41. Also, the word 21 that I said has been surrounded by these Nebraska Cornhusker games. 21 and 12, because 12 times 12 is 144. It's all about the 12 tribes of Israel and Moses. 21 is 141. And in Back to the Future, or whatever, like I said, it's about plutonium, but also in the Manhattan Project, they made plutonium 239. Plutonium 239 adds up to 415. If you do that as a date, that is the day Abe Lincoln died. And if you do it the other way, in Pythagorean, it's 15-4, so that they're both days that Abraham Lincoln would have died on. So interesting. They also made it during the Manhattan Project. And you think of New York and whatnot when you think of that. Manhattan Project, 2/12. Abraham Lincoln was born on 2/12, the 43rd day of the year. Interesting. And during the Manhattan Project, they called plutonium 49. So, just found that interesting. We've been talking about 49 and how it ties into the 52s and whatnot. So, anyway, let's look at some Nebraska. Just keep the Manhattan Project and nuclear stuff in mind. Let's look at some of the Nebraska Cornhusker stuff that deals with 41. So we had Shannon Lamb, who adds up to 41 and killed his 41-year-old girlfriend. Also Ethan Schmidt, who adds up to 52. But Nebraska has what you call the black shirts. It's their starting defensive line. They call them the Black Shirts. It adds up to 41. When they started calling them that, their coach was Bob Devaney. His name in gematria is 41. He died on May 9th, 5959. May 9th adds up to 41. Nebraska plays in Memorial Stadium. Memorial, 41. Even Husker fans, because Nebraska, they're called Huskers, whatever, Cornhuskers. Husker fans, 41. The defense, the Black Shirts, it all deals with the Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones, 41. And I've talked about how all this ties into the Delta shooting and the Sea of Red, and Moses parted the Red Sea, and then Moses Malone died. Moses Malone, 41. Abraham Lincoln's grandpa was even named Abraham Lincoln, and he died at the age of 41. Doesn't necessarily have to mean much either. I just wanted to point that out. It's just kind of weird. His name's Abraham Lincoln too. Even says he's buried on 85 degrees west. He was born in Berks County, Pennsylvania, which is actually included in the the Philadelphia reading area. So I've been talking about Philadelphia a lot. But down here it says Abraham Lincoln learned the tanner's trade, later took his brother John as his apprentice. In those days was James Boone, uncle to Daniel Boone. James Boone was a near neighbor to the Lincolns, blah, blah, blah. But I clicked on Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone died on September 26th, the day I've been talking about, when Nebraska plays Southern Mississippi, but he died at the age of 85. And his uncle that Abraham Lincoln took him to, he died in the year 1785. So he lived to be 85. His uncle died in the year 85. The word tanner's trade in gematria, it's 49, but it's also 139. Kind of like the day that Moses Malone died. Kind of like the day I've been talking about a ton of times, or this number at least. So anyway, let's move on here a little bit. Chicago, Illinois. Look where it is. Look where it's located. 41 degrees north. Abraham Lincoln and Barack Obama, the only presidents from this area, or Illinois. So interesting. Chicago. Also, I've talked about this town right here in the previous videos, Fort Calhoun, Nebraska. And the reason that I mentioned it was because it has a nuclear power plant or nuclear generating station in Fort Calhoun, Nebraska. And it's not very far away from Lincoln, Nebraska. I actually live about 50 miles away from this place. But look at the coordinates of it, 41 degrees north as well. So anyway, it even says the 2012 estimate population, 911. Who knows? It's in Washington County. So Lincoln died in Washington, D.C. I just want to show a few things about Washington, D.C. really quick. So Lincoln died at Ford's Theater, which added up to 58. But anyway, Washington, D.C., it even talks about in here, the metro area of which the district is a part of has a population of 5.8 million. So the 58, well, you keep scrolling down, you even find out something about the 23rd Amendment, 1961, whatever interesting, but says in the history, in his Federalist number 43, published January 23rd, 1788, James Madison argued that the new federal government would need authority, blah, 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 blah. You can read it for yourself, but interesting, it's his Federalist number 43. That's all about Abe Lincoln. And then when you click on James Madison, Scroll down here, look. Died at the age of 85. Go figure. I mean, go figure he would die at 85 or 58. Anyway, let's look at the gematria of Fort Calhoun then. Fort Calhoun. I know I did this in the previous videos, is 133. And also 52. Interesting. It's been a very big coded number this year. 133. Also 313, like March 13th, the day that Pope Francis became the Pope. 923 days before the day that he's coming to America on 9/22. Fort Calhoun, Nebraska adds up to 78. Interesting thing about the word 78, it adds up to 60, like all these 60s down here. A super interesting thing I realized was the Charleston church shooting. The address of it was 110 Calhoun Street, Charleston, South Carolina. 110 Calhoun. But in gematria, so I talked about Fort Calhoun, and Fort Calhoun has the nuclear generating station. Let's look at nuclear generating station. Nuclear generating station, 110. That's pretty scary considering the stuff about the World Trade Centers. They were 110 stories tall. Osama bin Laden adds up to 110. Well, 47, but also 110. 47, also significant. Rockefeller adds up to 110. Rockefeller was whatever proposed and approved by a Rockefeller. Even Adolf Hitler is 110. Just like Adolf Hitler is 110. Born on the 110th day even. What about Pearl Harbor? 114 and 60. Interesting. Pearl Harbor is 60. So who knows? I guess it's War on Terror. The War on Terror was started because of the September 11th attacks that were all coded by the number 110. 110, War on Terror, 66. Anyway, this town is named after John C. Calhoun, who many actually believe that he was the real reason that got the Civil War started. Like, he died way before the Civil War, but he was the one who basically stirred a lot of the stuff up. And he died on 3/31, or also 31-3, kind of like the day that Pope Francis became the Pope, 3/13. Anyway, this guy was a big proponent to tariffs, or protective tariffs. Let's look at tariffs. Tariffs is 34 in gematria. So just one tariff would be 33. In simple gematria, let's see here. Tariff, 60. And, I mean, what people talked about him starting the Civil War basically was because of a tariff here. Just one tariff. It was the tariff of 1828. And basically, what happened was that it went through or whatever, and he went home and wrote the South Carolina Exposition and Protest, which said that if the document stated that if the tariff was not repealed, South Carolina would succeed. And this was like in 1828, way before the Civil War even began. So some people claim that he was kind of the beginner of getting the Civil War going or whatever. I mean, just throwing that out there, but let's look at the gematria of South Carolina Exposition and Protest. 434. What are the odds of that? 43 and 34. All about the Civil War. Okay, running out of time. Probably make a part 3 tomorrow, but I want to just leave it on this. So the word 60 has been so significant, it adds 97. It's like southern Mississippi, who Nebraska plays.